We'll be back from the break. You're still watching Business Today. Now we look at operationalizing of SACCOs. We look at innovative insurance as the insurance sector strives towards market growth. The sector regulator, that is Insurance Regulatory Authority, has recognized innovations and developments for business and risk management by sector players as they formulate on-demand operation. Name Mutumba has the details.
The insurance sector in Uganda reports that 1.4 trillion shillings in gross underwritten premiums were collected by the various companies in 2022, as opposed to 1.13 trillion shillings in 2021. The World Bank report also indicates that insurance savings contribute 22.1% of the national GDP. It therefore plays a critical role in enabling Ugandans to save while protecting their families. Increased savings are critical to the country's development agenda, help to generate income and overcome poverty. Celebrating the Innovation Week, the Insurance Regulatory Authority recognized the best innovators. These included the most innovative insurance solution, the Non-Life Insurance Award, the Insurance Broker Solution, the Bank Assurance Agent, the Insurance Agent Solution, and the InsurTechs, among others.
As the regulator, may I reaffirm that the Insurance Regulatory Sandbox guidelines shall improve the efficiency and access to insurance services and create new opportunities for emerging technologies. And this will be done without compromising customer protection.
And we can only grow when we innovate and create better ways of delivering insurance policies in Uganda. It is also a good way of enhancing insurance inclusion. We know how many people, we know how many businesses are outside the insurance bracket, but we hope that as we do more publicity, as people come to understand the insurance as products, we shall be able to have a very dynamic industry that can support various raise capital for the investment.
Minister for Kampala Metropolitan Affairs, Honorable Minsa Kabanda, said insurance innovations are critical in addressing social and economic challenges, allowing for greater insurance penetration and support.
In the sector, we all know that innovation is key in solving social and economic challenges, not only in insurance industry, but across all sectors of the economy. Innovation in the industry will help us deepen insurance penetration and support national efforts for sustainable economic growth and development.
The contribution of the insurance industry to Uganda's economic development over the years cannot be understated, as it has collected insurance premiums and invested in economic growth and development. So far, premiums have ranged from 240 billion Ugandan shillings in 2010 to 1.44 trillion in 2022. Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Well, now, authorities in Kabale district have cautioned leaders and members of associations and the savings groups to consider fully getting them registered if they are to benefit from government programs. We get more of this report.
As Kabale pushes for economic redemption, savings and credit cooperatives are expected to help realize the intended goal. Kabale Labour Officer Suizan Davawe has expressed the need for groups, savings and credit cooperatives to get registered at district level as accreditation for legal operation. This was echoed during the second annual general meeting of Ndora East United Family Association that was held at Chanamira Sub-County headquarters.
Basically, when they are not registered, when they get some issues, basically wrangles between members, the government to intervene. This group has to be registered. So when it is not registered, now you end up going out of the association without any benefit. But if it is registered, the government will sit with the members and peruse through the constitution and see what the constitution talks about if the member is going to exit the association.
Counsel Elvis Twenda of Namara and co-advocates emphasized the need for strong laws and equitable leadership to promote economic growth. He urged members, management and the board to desist from fraud, mismanagement of SACCO funds, default on loans and ensure to embrace technology.
Of course, when an association is not duly registered, it cannot benefit from the government programs. When you look at the government programs, the Myoga, PDM, all they require a registered association. Why? See, when an association is registered, that is the first proof that there is management. It has a bank account. But an association is not registered. That means that association has no bank account. The management is vague. There is no way government will risk its resources in a quasi-organization body that is somewhere there. We don't know whether it is governed or not.
According to the association chairperson Hannington Tudiamoreba, they are open to extend financial support, one of the essential reasons for the operation of low earnings.
We hope that this association becomes a circle that benefits the common people. We urge other people to join the association so that it becomes more impactful.
Uganda's rural settlements have largely embarked on savings and credit cooperatives as a model to aggregate necessary funding of low-income communities that barely put up with big financial institutions. Nobat Diamhachi, Masika Tsime for Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
Well, loan acquisition and credit uptake has been redefined over time, responding to market changes such as risk, regulations and inflation, among other factors. And in tonight's Coffee Court, Fred Makobia interacts with Dr. Clark Chisembo to understand more of such underlying factors. Let's have it.
Well, it is a pleasure and thank you for joining us on the Coffee Court. This is where we ask and take time to digest matters of national importance, and this time around we take time to discuss matters of loan acquisition. For sure, I know and understand that different banks are categorized differently depending on the number of factors. That is what we find out tonight. I am joined by Dr. Clark Chisembo. He is the team head in charge of DALI, which is Development Associate Link. Doctor, thank you for finding time to speak to us.
You're welcome and thank you for hosting me, sir.
Different banks are categorized differently depending on the number of factors. First and foremost, what are these categories?
A very good evening, viewers, and happy to be here. Thank you so much for the question. I would like to say that financial institutions all over the globe are categorized according to what they are offering. And specifically to Uganda, we have 4 tiers. So you'll find there is...
Is it just about Uganda or globally?
No, it's global. It's global because they have to have categorization. Yes, because remember that they do take deposits, they do lending. Some do take do lend, they don't take deposits. That's how they are categorized, but also in size of and operations. Okay. So we have what we would call the tier 1, which are commercial banks. Commercial banks, I think in Uganda right now we have close to 30, about that.
Sure.
Yeah, about 30 commercial banks. Around 28 to 30 commercial banks. So what qualifies a commercial bank? So a commercial bank is a financial institution that serves over a larger population, but also it is a deposit with the deposit institution, because they have to deposit a collateral with a central bank. So these are entities that are regulated by the central bank, and they are majorly commercial.
So the boss to the commercial bank is the Bank of Uganda. Is that what you suggest?
Yes, the regulator, who is the boss, is the Central Bank of Uganda. Okay. Yeah. And then we have the credit institutions, those who would put them in tier 2, and finance companies. You see, credit institutions, some of them, you've heard of microfinance institutions?
I've heard, so.
Yes, microfinance institutions, those are credit institutions or credit societies, right? So those ones, we put them in the second tier. Then we have the third tier. Now these tiers are categories, but we call them tiers in our financial language. Okay. So they are MDIs in tier 3. Now MDIs are microfinance deposit-taking institutions, meaning that they are microfinance institutions, yeah, that they can lend, but they don't take deposits. You can't go and put your money there. You go to pay back your loan if you got a loan from them. Otherwise, they also have an account in a higher bank, the tier 1, a commercial bank, where they can open an escrow account and all the money goes there. They're not allowed to keep money maybe in a box or in a safe. But the MDIs, they are allowed. Some of the examples, for example, I think like Finca. You've heard of Finca? Yes.
Why are they not allowed for customers to go and deposit?
You see,
what's the logic?
When you're dealing with the issues of money, always there is talk about risk. First and foremost, in the financial sector, and financial sector, I mean where there are banks, there are microfinance institutions, there are savings and credit cooperatives, there are village saving groups. The first issue is risk management, that there is a risk in handling money. Okay. And then 2 is that are you compliant with the laws that govern the handling of this money? So you find that those that do not take deposits have not yet passed that certification of handling mass deposits. Mass deposits are meaning you have about 10 billion Uganda shilling at any one time. That is a lot of money.
So who approves that you're ready and you've graduated from one level to the other? In this particular context, Dr.
Yes, so it depends, because one is that the central bank has its criteria, the Central Bank of Uganda. For example, there is an amount which you're supposed to deposit to the central bank, and that amount is not small. And some institutions may not be able to raise it, yet they want to go into financial service business. So commercial banks have money deposits with the central bank, but also the level of integrity, who are the directors, where is the money coming from. So all those are issues to deal with.
So you talked about Finca. Is that the only example we have in the country?
No, there are quite a number of them.
Like which ones?
I know about Finca, I know about Opportunity Bank.
But that's a bank.
Now that is a dilemma, that it is in between. Being called a bank does not mean that you're in tier 1, because you could be, say for example, Fred Bank.
But I make deposits in Opportunity Bank.
Pardon?
I make deposits in opportunity banks.
You make deposits because it is in the middle. It was graduated. There is a stage of graduation that you're in between the microfinance deposit-taking institutions, right? Okay. And a bank. So you can take deposits because you have a license to take deposits. But those deposits have a certain ceiling which they don't exceed. If you exceed that at any one time, you have to call a bullion van and they take money to another bank, which bank is considered a commercial bank. So there are quite a number of them, but those are the two examples I can give, just not to have others
issues
get out of here and they're like, why didn't you talk about us? Because I deal with almost all the financial institutions in this country.
So that is at tier 3 level.
That is at tier 3 level. You're going towards the tier 2 commercial bank, credit institutions. So even if you're called like Fred Bank, that's why I'm giving an example of Fred Bank.
So it's possible that I can wake up and open my own bank and call it Fred Bank.
Yeah, Fred Bank, but it depends on what you do. You can decide to call it Fred Bank, but when you call it Fred Bank, what license do you hold? Because you must be having a license. You could have a license for a commercial bank. You could have a license for credit institutions. You get it? You could have a license for the MDIs or microfinance institutions. And then you could have just a license for savings and credit cooperatives. All these, until of recent, 2 years ago, I think, all banks were regulated by the central bank, you see? But the microfinance institutions, the circles, had membership, but without a regulator, which means that it was becoming very hard in case there is a fraud or you feel aggrieved and you have a complaint, you don't know where to go. Okay. Because they are not regulated. They start a business of money, but in case you are robbed or you feel that there is a fraudulent act, where do you report? There was nowhere until of recent that now we have the Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority, which now regulates this is UMRA, which now from the central bank, there's UMRA. So UMRA, all these MFIs, the microfinance institutions, the circles, all of them are under there. So now there's a case because they have to meet certain credentials to be able to deal with people's money. You know, one of the most sensitive issues to deal with is actually not people, but the people's money.
Secretly the same, people's money.
Yeah, people's money. But you know, you can easily deal with a person who has their own money or has no money than a person who is holding another person's money.
That sounds complex.
Because they can get reckless. They can get reckless. This is not my money.
So that is tier 4.
Yeah. So the tier 4s are rather a little bit smaller. That's a starting point. But you find that some of the tier 4 institutions, for example, if we go to the savings and credit cooperatives, some of them, because these hold savings and their credit cooperatives, people come together. They don't belong to one individual. You can't say, I own a circle. You say you are a member or shareholder in a circle.
Do they receive deposits?
They do.
So how comes that tier 4 receives deposits and tier 3 does not receive deposits.
So you see, the structure of formation also matters. Mr. Makuya Fred, today you can leave this place here and go open up a microfinance institution.
That is possible?
Yeah, and you have a license. All you need is the minimum amount required. You see? But a SACCO, you don't just go and open a savings and credit cooperative organization. The utmost, the highest in a SACCO anyone can have is 30%. But you see, because of commercialization of the financial sector, the tiers also are more oriented or inclined towards that. That a SACCO is considered more of a community entity that helps to save for people and then gives them credit. But most SACCOs, actually some, are larger than banks.
Because that is where the complexity is, that you have a tier 4 with bigger responsibilities granted by those in authority, and you have a tier 3 who can not receive deposits, okay, but can perform the rest of the other functions.
Then you have a tier 4 which can receive the savings, you're taking deposits, and you issue credit, so you're lending.
So if I am Fred, Brenda and family, for example, I want to open up this bank. So I have the will is there, I can do that.
Fred and company.
And company, to open up a bank.
To open up a bank. Fred and company can open up a bank if they meet the criteria.
And what are
the first one being integrity. The integrity and your standing in society. That is first and foremost, because you might find yourself being asked to go to Interpol to ensure that you don't have any criminal record. You see, that you have a clean track record. But also, do you understand money matters? Then the other is, do you have the minimum deposit? And I don't mean deposit in your bank. I mean money you put on the side. You put money in the central bank. So when you put money in the central bank, that one you leave it there. It's more of like a collateral, a security. Now if a collateral or a security is in billions and you're not having those billions, then you may not open a bank. You would rather go and open a microfinance institution because that collateral is lower.
Isn't it too risky for people out there now to deal with such kind of institutions?
I think it is risky to deal with any institution because you need also to understand money matters and also management of the money, because it is your money, right? You're utilizing an entity which is going to help you either keep the money when you deposit, because when you leave it at home, it can be robbed, or you may work outside your budget because you see the money is available. So you put it in a bank. But again, why I say that it can be a risk dealing with any institution is that when you hear, have you heard of an institution which they call there's a fund called a deposit, I think, Deposit Protection Fund?
I am aware of it.
Yes. Now, a deposit protection fund is not set up for fun or to create some more jobs. but to leverage or to help out in case a bank goes down.
I've asked, put them to task on why they come in at a point of crisis, especially the deposit protection people.
Yeah, for example, like a bank can lend out more than it is receiving. It might have, defaulters.
How do you give out what you don't have?
How do you give out what you don't have?
You give out what you don't have. In other words, you lend more than you have. Is that possible?
It is, because you are a channel. You see, when you're a channel, there are depositors coming to keep money. They bring every day, they walk in and deposit money. It's from this money that you lend out.
Doctor, we must be winding up on particularly this matter regarding the categories of banks. Your parting shots as we plan to wind up this particular one.
Parting shots is that the population out there should try to understand what governs or who governs the specific financial institution, and also understand, try to search about its credibility. And I think that is very important to safeguard one's finances, but also while dealing with an entity called a bank. Thank you.
Dr. Clark, thank you for finding time to speak to us, especially on matters. One of the reasons why you and I wake up is to make money, but how we safeguard our money is another thing. Regarding how banks are categorized, that has been our discussion. Next time when we meet again, we'll be digesting matters of loan acquisition, which I know it's one of the most complex, but one of the things that you and I must be able to know. This is the Coffee Court, and my name is Fred Makubia.
We wind up with business today. Let's first have a look at our top stories.
Business Today, Uganda Securities Exchange, UN Women and other stakeholders demonstrate support for investment in capital markets. Women-led enterprises called upon. Local aviation operators displeased with licensing recommendations as poor airfields and costly service fees strain operations. Uganda still grapples with climate change. Impact cost of inaction estimated between $3.2 to $5.2 as resilience projects expected to offset setback.
All right. Thank you very much for being part of business today, wherever you are. I'm Jeremy Bolsonko with Winnie Williams and Agochi on sign language. Till tomorrow, have a good night and a good evening.